this one. I just love that button. I love that button. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order. I want to acknowledge that we're on Treaty 6 land, the home of the Métis. I'll ask the clerk to say the prayer, but then I'm going to ask everyone to stay, and we'll have a moment of silence to think about the people that have been affected with the events that happened over the weekend. And then we'll continue with the meeting.
O God, let us each in our own way ask your wisdom and guidance in our deliberations. Help us to incorporate into all our decisions those values which will enable us to fulfill our mission, to act as responsible stewards, and to respect and value the cultural and spiritual tradition of all the citizens of the City of Prince Albert. For this we pray. Amen.
Thank you. I'll go to number 3, the approval of the agenda, and we have one amendment to the agenda. At the request of the writer, we are going to remove item 11.11 from the agenda, which was a rezoning request. So if I could have somebody move the agenda as amended, please. Councillor Kilmer.
Thank you. I move that the agenda for this meeting be approved as amended and that the presentations, delegations, and speakers listed on the agenda be heard when called forward by the mayor.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Ziarkowski.
Seconded.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Is that item being removed by request of the writer of the report, like administration,
Oh, no.
or the applicant?
Sorry, there.
The
there.
applicant.
The applicant,
thank you.
sorry. The applicant. Okay, I'll prompt the question. Questions now open. And carried. Thank you. Presentations, we have none. Declaration of conflict of interest, you all know that when an item comes up for a conflict of interest, if you could, and notify us, and then when the item comes up, if you excuse yourself. Councillor Edwards.
Your Worship, I'm going to declare a conflict of interest for item 11.4, Carlton Park Community Club Pave the Way fundraiser, because I am on the board of Carlton Park.
Thank you. Councillor Zepp.
I declare a conflict of interest on 11.12.
Yep. Reason is because of spouse?
Well, my spouse is employed by
Yep.
National at this time.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with conflicts? No? So, okay, I'll move on. Adoption of the minutes.
That the minutes of the council regular meeting held August 8, 2022, the special meeting held August 22nd, 2022 be taken, read, and adopted.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Edwards.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'll cue the question. Questions now open. And carried. Thank you. Notice of proclamations, there was 4 since the last meeting. 7.1, International Literacy Day, August 8, 2022. World Patient Safety Day, September 17, 2022. Terry Fox Day, September 18, 2022. National Forest Week, September 18th to the 22nd. Those are all my proclamations. I'll go to number 8, which is a public hearing. So I will declare the public hearing open and ask the public if there is anyone in the public that would like to talk on this item. Seeing none, I will then ask the administration for comments. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of council. You recall back in May of this year, we approved a small daycare center to be located at 215 12th Street West, the former location of the Lucy Baker School. The last step in the approval process is a rezoning to C2 small lot arterial commercial. After the made application, we did make sure to amend or to adhere to the zoning bylaw. We moved ahead with public notice, and we did not hear from any of the surrounding residents, so therefore we're recommending approval of second and third reading. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that then, I'm going to declare the public meeting closed, and I'll go to council for the direction. Oh. Councilor Tara Lennox-App.
I move that bylaw number 17 of 2022 be given second and third readings.
Thank you. Seconder.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll second that.
Thank you. And I'll prompt the question. The question is now open. Carried. Madam Clerk.
Mayor, we have bylaw number 17 of 2022 to amend the zoning bylaw to rezone 215 12th Street West from R4 high-density residential to C2 small arterial commercial. This bylaw is for second and third reading today.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Zepp.
That bylaw number 17 of 2022 be read a second time.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Head.
Yeah, I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay. Prompt the question. For second reading, it is now open. And it carried. Councillor Zepp.
That bylaw number 17 of 2022 be read a third time and passed, and that bylaw number 17 of 2022 be now adopted, sealed, and signed by the mayor and city clerk.
Thank you. Councillor Head.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Thank you. I see no one else. Thank you. So I'll prompt the question. Question's now open. And it carried. Thank you. Delegations, we have none. Communications, we have none. Number 11, reports of administration and committees. 11.1, development permit application, school. Councillor Zepp.
That the development permit application for a post-secondary school to be located at 54 11th Street East be approved.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Kilmer.
Thank you. I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion, comments? Councillor Zepp.
Thank you. Just a question for administration. I'm hearing from the public there a question. The description describes GED programming, which members of the public tell me they think of as not post-secondary, but more of secondary school. And so I'm being asked if we are able to release to the public what school this will be, the name of the school, and I just don't know if that's something administration is able to release.
Go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Lennox, for the question. Unfortunately, I can't release that information this evening. What I can say, it is a publicly funded school as per the definition of the zoning bylaw, and you're correct. GED programs, along with some other basic education programs, are being offered at that location. Okay. But I'll let them make their announcements as necessary.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Edwards? You're good? Councillor Zierakowski?
Thank you. Just for the benefit of the public who's asking, what's the parking plan? What's the plan for parking for the folks who will be attending this, assuming that they're not going to be carpooling, that they'll be driving and need a place to, if they're not taking the bus and so forth, just so the folks know.
Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Zierakowski, for the question in regards to parking. Downtown, we have very few parking requirements. What I can say, obviously, is our downtown is the center of a well-used transportation network. There are 8 parking stalls on site. As the report indicates, there are 3 classrooms of up to 10 students each. They won't necessarily all be used at the same time. They'll be used partly during the day, partly in the evenings, which will free up some parking space. But after a review of the site and the surrounding area, the education provider feels that won't be an issue. So I don't believe there's enough on site to cater to all of the students, but certainly the surrounding area won't be an issue.
Go ahead, Councillor. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you for that. That's good information. So from that, I can infer that at some point in time, if this institution comes back to the city and says, we need more parking, what can we do for parking nearby? We'd like a piece of this parking lot or that parking lot. The answer will most likely be no. We should have had that discussion at the onset.
Yeah, thanks for the follow-up question, Councillor Zierakowski. Yes, they've been made well aware of the parking requirements, so I anticipate a very similar discussion to what you've described.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll prompt the question. Question is now open and carried. Thank you. 11.2, 21st Avenue East design. Oh, Councillor Brodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that the professional services agreement for planning and design for 21st Avenue East roadway be awarded to AECOM Canada Limited for an estimated cost of $82,200, including the provincial sales tax. 2, that the city manager be authorized to approve additional expenditures if required for the 21st Avenue East roadway design to a maximum of the overall approved capital budget of $200,000. 3, that the land fund approve budget of $200,000 remain until the project is completed, and 4, that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the agreement and any other necessary documents on behalf of the city. Thank you.
Okay, if you don't mind, I had one question. Now I'll come to you. For process, I've never seen this before where we've been asked to give the city manager the authority to approve the whole project when we don't even know what the final cost of the project's going to be. And the other question I have, if the budget's $200,000 for the project, maybe someone can explain the project to me, is 82, that takes up quite a bit of the budget. Or is this that was put in the budget just for the design? Oh, sorry. Seconder. Councillor Edwards.
I'll second that, Mayor Dion.
Thank you. Go ahead, Director.
Thank you. So there's 3 items that we couldn't quantify at this time during the RFP, and that was the survey costs that go along with the design. We have to do the preliminary survey. That's a little bit unknown because the fact that most of the land is owned by the city, but we also are crossing the railway tracks, and tying into the highway. So once we have that survey cost, that's a cost that we'll include. It won't be very large. There's two more costs, and I just mentioned them, crossing the railway tracks and joining into the Ministry of Highways. There'll be some costs there, but we can't quantify them because we actually don't know what they are yet. We don't know what they're going to ask of us. Certainly, none of those costs are going to add up to a very large amount. Certainly, it won't be more than the 82 we've already approved, and each of them might be 10 or 20,000 that we would go to the city manager for approval, so not to waste your time.
Thank you. Perfect answer. Did you have a question, Councilor Jarkowski, or did that cover it?
No, that's,
Okay. I see no more questions, so I'll prompt the question. Questions now open.
they don't give Sask Energy a power and easement on that.
Absolutely. Carries. Thank you. 11.3, Riverside Drive paving. Oh, Councilor Zepp.
Thank you. That the contribution and detour agreement between the city and the Ministry of Highways and Infrastructure be approved to fund the project on the essential terms as follows. The project limits shall be Riverside Drive from 3rd Avenue Northwest to the west corporate limits of the city of Prince Albert, and the ministry's financial contribution will be 50% of the project cost, up to $350,000. That the project be approved to be included in the 2023 roadways recapping capital budget, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the agreement and any other necessary documents on behalf of the city.
Thank you. Seconder.
I'll second. Thanks, Mayor Dion.
Thank you. Any questions?
I did.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Question for administration, just in terms of the detour, I did send this in over a week ago just through report a problem, but I haven't seen an answer, so I thought this is an appropriate place to ask. For the detour for this project, I have heard concerns about Oxford being used as the detour instead of Cambridge and in Hazeldale area, just based on which street has, a more significant millings or asphalting location. And so I've had a resident ask, look, can we stop using Oxford and move on to Cambridge for the detour that is currently happening right now? And so I'm just wondering what administration's response would be in terms of detour and the impact it has on those residential roads that aren't paved.
Go ahead, Director.
Thank you for that question. So I think the two are not related in the sense that what you're asking me is about, I did receive that question too, but the detour that we had placed was related to a different roadworks project, and we were doing some work, and so the detour just went off of Riverside, but we did not direct them to which street to use,
Okay.
Oxford or Cambridge.
Okay.
Drivers could choose whichever one they wanted. In relationship to this detour, the detour that we're speaking of here is during the reconstruction of Highway 3 to Shellbrook. They're allowing light traffic, cars and pickup trucks, to go down the Riverside Drive. And part of this negotiation was in exchange for that, they're going to assist in the repaving. So when that road is being repaved, vehicles won't be able to come down Riverside Drive at all.
Right.
So they'll have to take the main highway into the city. So
Okay.
no one's being rerouted onto Oxford or Cambridge, any of
this-
the other streets in
For
that
this
area.
project at all?
Yeah.
Perfect, that solves it. Thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions? Hearing none, I'll prompt the question. Oh, just before I prompt the question, I'd like to thank both Wes and Nicole Miller for helping us on this project. This was a joint project that started with the Department of Highways, the RM of Buckland, and ourselves. But it changed quite a few times, and I want to thank the department to realize that to continue with the three-way partnership, it was going to cost us more money, and we'd actually be paving into the RM. and I won't use taxpayers' dollars to that. So we went back at them, and we were very successful in getting this agreement. So I want to thank both of them for taking part in this exercise and explaining why we should not go ahead with it. And this is, of course, a benefit to the city of PA. So thank you for that. Now I'll prompt the question. Question's now open. And it carries. So thank you. Councillor Edwards? Yep. You're welcome. Okay, 11.4, Carlton Park Community Club Pave a Way fundraising update. And now he's not here, no one wants to do it. Councillor Gilmer.
Thank you. I'll move that the Carlton Park Community Club be authorized to formalize the sponsorship agreements with sponsors as part of the Pave the Way fundraising campaign.
Thank you. Councillor Bodnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll second that.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Zerikowski.
Well, here we go again, Your Worship, another wonderful partnership to get things done in our city.
Yes.
This time it's with the Carlton Park Community Club themselves, committing to raise $30,000 to make this project go ahead. And that's how we get things done. As we know, it's not often the sexy things that cost money, but it's the pavement on the ground. It's the concrete that's going to cost some money. And at the end of the day, we're going to have basketball courts and pickleball courts for our folks and our youth and our kids to play at. So I'm very excited because I hear from kids weekly, where do we go? We don't want to kick the young kids off, where do we go? So this is yet another destination for our youth to stay active. Really looking forward to the pavement going down and the recreational opportunities that will be at this location for our kids. So again, thanks to the city, thanks to the Carlton Park Hall at creating this Kinsman basketball court and pickleball courts in the near future.
Thank you. Councillor Bodnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just what Councillor Zerkowski said, I agree with everything. And what I like is that the community clubs are actually not all the same. We don't offer the same services at every single community club. And this is an example of where this community said this is what we need. And as a city, we agree. And, you know, at Crescent Heights, they might need something different. And we'll have to support that. The skate park, you know, the mobile skate park down in the west, Councilor Miller's, that's what we need. Those are the kinds of things that we need. And each different community club has different needs, and that's what it should be. It shouldn't be a shoebox and everything, you know, fits the same at every community club. So I'm very happy to support this program and thank the Carlton Park Community Club for their initiative in this.
Okay, thank you. Maybe one thing we could do, councillors, we could have a pickleball tournament. Just think the crowd that would come, it would be exciting.
Followed by jazzercise.
Exercise, yeah, that's the other one. Okay, I'm going to prompt the question. Oop, dang. Uh-oh. Don't come near me, clerk, I got it. It's at 0. The vote is now open. Vote is now open. Oh, no, Blake. Sorry, I'm waiting for the 9 to click. Carried. Thank you.
Right here, Councillor Lennox.
Oh. Okay, 11.5, rental agreement, PA Shark Swim Club. Councillor Head.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that the rental agreement for pool time at the Frank Dunn swimming pool between the city and the Prince Albert Sharks Swim Club Incorporated be approved for a 2-year term commencing September 1st, 2022 to August 31st, 2024. And 2, that the annual base rent for the term be set at $11,220 for 2022-2023 and $11,444 for 2023-2024. And that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of the city.
Thank you. Seconder? Counselor Zapp?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? I see no one in the queue. So prompt the question. Question is now open. Carried. 11.6, tender 32 of 22 security services. Councillor Cody.
Yes, Your Worship, I agree with the administration on this, and I move that tender number 32 of 2022 for security services be awarded to the Canadian Corps of Commissionaires Company, North Saskatchewan Division, for a 4-year term commencing January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2026, as per terms and conditions outlined within the tender document.
Thank you. Well, no, I have a procedure question. Should there also not be authorization for myself and the city clerk to sign the contract? Or not necessary? Like, it's odd that we are approving a contract and it's not giving you and me the author. Yeah. Do you want to add that in case it is required? Well, I think it would be. It's a contract. And so all contracts have to be signed by the mayor and city clerk. And you're okay with that, Councillor Head? Councillor Cody? Okay. Thank you. Councillor Head?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Okay, I see no one in the queue. I'll prompt a question. Oh, go ahead. Queue you up. You're up.
Okay, thank you. So I believe this company is the current provider for security
Correct.
with our civic facilities. And I see in the report that it appears it's being awarded to the same contractor because of price. Were there any other factors involved in making this decision other than price? Have we been happy as a city with the services been provided? Any scheduling or personnel issues? Those types of things, other than cost? Were there any other factors involved in the decision or the recommendation?
Okay. Director of Community Services.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. To Councillor Zarakowski's inquiry, certainly there were other factors that came into play in bringing this recommendation forward today. They have been, yes, our existing contractor for the past 10 years, but we do believe it's been a positive relationship. It's one, although they're a contracted service, in this case, we do feel they become part of the team. So when we have facility staff, in some cases that work alone, or in some cases that work in high traffic or high attended areas, it's important for those relationships to be built, and we feel the firm really goes out of their way to build those relationships, but also be accommodating on short notice for areas we need immediate response on. So it's a large variety, as you've seen in the tender, of services, not just stationary at facilities, but they move throughout our facilities, and they also perform mobile patrols, which in some cases do come on short notice. So we've very much appreciated the mutual benefits that have come out of it the past 10 years. And certainly coupled with the, I would say, favorable pricing that we've seen over that period of time as well, has also, I think, lent itself to a positive relationship.
Okay. Any other questions? No one in the queue? Question is now open. And carried. Thank you. 11.7, 15th Street parking removals. Councillor Zirkowski.
I'll move that the removal of the on-street parking, including 14 metered parking stalls and an unloading zone on 15th Street and First Avenue West and First Avenue East be approved.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Head?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Zepp?
Question for administration. I have had some members of the public tell me, look, we don't need another driving lane at this location. Just wondering what administration's response would be to that.
Thank you for that question. So as you can see in the report, 15th Avenue or 15th Street East is the highest volume traffic street in the entire city of Prince Albert. It even has higher volumes now than crossing the Diefenbaker Bridge. And it only continues to rise with the addition of more stores along 15th Street and Cornerstone. So as you know, last year we widened the portion of 15th from 1st to 6th so that it has a proper 3 lanes of traffic. And this area here is the same width, but it's been used as parking. And as you can see in the report, there's a benefit to having the 3rd lane, especially in the high peak times, like on weekends, on Fridays, and everyone leaving the city at the same time versus when people are coming into the city. So it will be useful.
And then just one other question is just for the benefit of the public, I'll ask, why is it that administration is recommending this change for the north side of 15th, but continuing to keep parking on the south side of 15th across?
So as noted in the report, the first block past 2nd Avenue, there are a couple of businesses there. They don't have any additional parking, off-street parking behind their properties because the railway tracks cross there. And so presently those meters are resulting in revenue and they are used daily to keep those businesses afloat. If at some point in the future those businesses were no longer there and that parking was no longer needed, we would be back here to remove that too so that you had it all the way eastbound also. But presently they're very well used and it's more traffic leaving at one time than coming in. So that's a little more sporadic than westbound.
I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the question's now open. And it carried. Thank you. 11.8, naming of city parks. Councillor Botnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that the naming of city park spaces be approved.
Thank you. Seconder.
I'll second Mayor Dion. Thank you.
Discussion? Councillor Zepp.
Thank you. Our public spaces currently, we find that female identified individuals are underrepresented as compared to male identified individuals in our civic public spaces when you look at the demographics. And this report indicates naming 16 different public spaces. Only one of 16 is a female identified individual. And so I have heard from the public that it's something we need to be aware of and something we need to work on as a city. As a result of some thoughts from a colleague, I am providing a notice of motion tonight, not to be heard tonight, to be heard at a future meeting, to make amendments, to propose amendments that administration look at amending the naming of park spaces policy and the street naming policy as well, to encourage diversity and gender equity in terms of what selection process and in the future naming of spaces. And I am not detracting from anyone located on this list in any manner. The list is simply incomplete, and we can improve our gender equity in terms of having male and female identified public spaces in our city.
Okay, I just have a question about your gender equity. So what you're going to ask us in your notice of motion, and maybe I can wait till then, is it doesn't matter how many accomplishments on this side or on this side, you want them equal, whether these are better or worse. Is that what you're looking for? I'm confused. Maybe I should wait till your motion and then you might understand. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So as I've heard from some colleagues in this room, equity is not equal, right? Equity does not mean equal, but female identified individuals are underrepresented if you look at all of the named civic spaces in our city. And there are systemic long-term reasons for that, right? What year were men able to vote? What year were women able to vote? What year were men able to run for office? What year were women able to run for office? What kind of contributions did women make in wartime compared to men making in wartime? So, to answer your question, what I'm suggesting is, it'll be a notice of motion. I've only looked at the city of Saskatoon. I'm sure administration will look more broadly than that. But I see that the city of Saskatoon, in their naming policy, that they do make an effort to have, they use the phrase diversity, equity, and inclusion in their policy. And I think that is the appropriate space for this, for us to look at it, is look, this is a policy and a process of how we name places. And it matters to people, it really does. And so my notice of motion that you'll hear is for administration to bring back a report on how we can amend those two policies to be able to have this, when we're looking at the recommended applicants, the successful applicants, that we encourage diversity and gender equity in that. I use those terms. And so I think your question was, what do I mean by gender equity? Does it have to be exacting? No, equity is not equal, but we need to consider one female identified person to 15, which is in this report. I don't think that is equitable. And so we need to look at the policy, and we need to change that policy so that we have people that are different, that are honored in this very special way.
Okay, just before I go to you, Councillor Bodnick, I think I'm going to make this announcement because I think it fits perfectly with gender equity, as my councillor colleague is saying, and I want to thank you for giving us the notice of motion instead of today. But without a policy, without a rule, I'm very pleased to announce this council now, with their latest appointments of city manager and city clerk, we have now reached 57% of our senior management now are female. Without a policy, without a list, it's just the right thing to do. And so I just wanted to bring that up because I'm very proud of that point, and I'm going to echo that at the city managers caucus meeting in the future, because we are certainly a leader in that equity. So I'm very pleased with that. Councillor Bodnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What should have been a big celebration is turning into a little bit of a downer because of people complaining about how this was done. And I had one person that came to me, approached me, and I said, okay, bring forward some names. Bring me forward some names. If this is what you really feel, bring forward those names, their accomplishments. And then tell me on this, of these 16, who should not have been there because you have 8 better names. Well, I have yet to receive that from this person. Like, I'm you know, we asked for input, we got input. We asked the management committee to come forward. Management committee consisted of, at that time, I do believe it was Councillor Cody, Councillor Lennox Zepp, and yourself that put this together and voted on it, from my understanding, from the process. And so this is why we're where we are, where we are at right now. But I want to talk about the accomplishments of the 5 park spaces in Ward 5. I could go on and I could spend 2 hours here and talk about all these people, but I won't. And I'm paraphrasing the accomplishments of some of these people. I'll start off with Tom Settee, an Indigenous veteran, a man that sacrificed his life on D-Day, June 6, 1944. He was one of the first waves that stormed that beach. That was the Atlantic Wall that the Nazis had fortified. We had tried to penetrate Europe in 1942, unsuccessful. 1,000 Canadians died. 44, we were prepared. He was part of a line. And what the Canadian forces did is we lined up all the men that stormed that beach in order of province. So right up the end was BC, the Albertans, the Saskatchewan boys. Tom Settee was one of them. First wave in. The casualty rate of that first wave was 60-70% of people died. He survived. That's remarkable. He then went on and liberated and established that point. That, if that point did not happen, the Nazis would not have been defeated as soon as they were to be defeated. Tom Settee deserves a park, at least a park named after him. I mean, I could go on and talk about his boxing accomplishments, and Councillor Edwards here is part of the boxing club. It's the Tom Settee Boxing Club, Tom Settee Boxing Club in Prince Albert. They named that organization after him. Very successful club. It involves many, many people in the community, and a lot of, like I work at PAMC, and below us is boxing, and all of a sudden in the morning you'll hear right around noon all this noise down there and boom, 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 and it's at-risk kids. No, it's at-risk kids that are coming in there, and they're opening that club up, the Tom Settee Club, Boxing Club. So Tom Settee, if anybody thinks that his name should have not been there and somebody else should have been there, bring forward somebody that, in my opinion, is more accomplished than Tom Settee. George Sutherland, and Tom Settee is going to be in Crescent Heights. George Sutherland, Agnew Street. Mr. Sutherland, he signed up with the Regina Rifles. He was one of 600 Canadians that was part of the 1st Special Services Forces with the United States. These are the guys that went behind enemy lines during World War II. We have a man from Prince Albert that did that. You know, if you think of the movie Inglourious Bastards, that was a movie. That was Quentin Tarantino. And that's what they did. That's what the Canadians and Americans did. They went and they sabotaged all these Nazi installations in enemy territory. This is what Mr. Sutherland did. He went into France. He went into the Aleutian Islands where the Imperial Japan was attacking. He went into Italy behind enemy lines before Mr. Laird and other people went there. He went and was in France behind enemy lines before D-Day. This is what this man did. After the war, he moved back to Prince Albert. He married a woman by the name of Pauline. They had 13 children. Can you imagine? He should have a park named after him just for that. But I mean, his accomplishments are incredible. His family is ecstatic that he's being recognized. And I mean, most of his service, when you get and ask for veteran service, most of it is blacked out because of the special nature of what he did. It was so highly secure and secretive of what he did and why we did that and why we were successful. The man needs a park named after him. If there's somebody that's better than him, bring that name forward for me. Mr. Laird.
Oh.
Muzzy Road. Mr. Laird is a veteran as well. I mean, not only was he there at Sicily By the way, he was wounded 3 times. He has shrapnel still in his body. He was at Sicily. He was at Ortona. Ortona was the bloodbath in Italy for the Canadians. And it was door-to-door combat. He was there fighting. He entered Rome in 1944. And finally, when Rome fell, Mussolini, the fascists in Italy, fascist Italy was defeated. He then went, he wasn't there at D-Day, he entered that point that Mr. Settee helped create. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of Canadians and Americans entered at that point. And Mr. Laird then went north with the Canadians, liberated the Netherlands and Belgium. Again, if there's a person that's better than him, bring that name forward, please.
Yes.
I would like that person that's better than Mr. Laird for somebody to tell me. Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin is going to have Davis Street Park named after him. He served in the Canadian Navy. He was on the Corvette ships. These were the Canadian ships that guided every single piece of equipment and transportation supply that went across the Atlantic Ocean. And they had to go in zigzag form because the Nazis were sinking these ships. 900 ships got sunk. Mr. Martin survived on his ship. He also was responsible for protecting the Atlantic coastline. We know that Nazi U-boats, Nazi submarines, actually were as far as into Halifax and into the St. Lawrence River. And that's what the Canadians had to do. Mr. Martin was a part of this protection. So again, I'll raise the question. If somebody thinks that somebody's better than Mr. Martin, bring their name forward and give me their credentials. Nelson Park. Now, it's interesting that there's not a first name with Nelson Park. And I think because there are so many Nelsons that served in the war, and this is a veteran park as well, and this is going to be the park that borders 28th Street, Longworth, and Sybil. It's a huge area in that part of Crescent Heights. But the Nelsons that I found out, Warrant Officer Jack Nelson, he was from Prince Albert area. He was killed in May of 1945, just before victory was declared, and he's buried overseas, from my understanding. There's also an A.C. Nelson, who was in the Royal Canadian Air Force. He too was killed in 1944. And these pilots, these people that were on these pilots, the Royal Canadian Air Force, in 1944, they were the ones that were going into Nazi-held France and all the way into Germany and bombing military installations there. They had a 52% casualty rate, those Canadians that were there. Mr. Nelson unfortunately did die. He was one of the people that sacrificed his life for that. He was one of them. Mr. Wickens, if we know Wickens Way, he was a navigator. He was one of the ones that survived, in fact. And I could go on about Mr. Wickens, but I won't. But he is a remarkable man as well. And his stories, and he since has passed, but his stories are so incredible and so rich. And it's something that textbooks, we could read about the war in textbooks, but until you talk to these veterans and until you get their version of what happened and their ideas and everything that happened, you don't appreciate and get a really rich understanding of their contributions. Last but not least, the other Nelson is Walter Nelson, who also served from the Prince Albert area. So it's appropriate that it's called Nelson Park, not one individual. And so, again, if there's people that are more competent, more qualified, have greater accomplishments, bring their names forward. But I mean, I could go on about Mr. Smith, and I could go on about Mr. Erickson and the other veterans, but I'm not going to. I wanted to focus in on Ward 5, and I think that we have done the right thing. We brought forward the best people and named parks after them. And that, to me, and I'm very proud that we did this, and I'm very proud to move this motion. And I'm very proud that Mr. Laird, Mr. Sutherland, Mr. Settee, Mr. Martin, and the Nelsons are going to be acknowledged in my particular ward, Ward 5. It's a good thing that we did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for letting me speak so long.
Thank you. I'll prompt the question. Question is now open. Carried. Unbelievable. Okay, move on to 11.9, responsible pet ownership bylaw, wild birds. Councillor Zierakowski.
I will move that bylaw number 19 of 2022 be introduced and given 3 readings.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Edwards.
Second that, your worship.
Thank you. I'll prompt the question. Okay, questions, hang on. Go ahead.
Question for administration. I take it from reading this that citizens can still have bird feeders and feed wild birds, but that there are certain birds that are prohibited under this bylaw from being fed. I've been asked that question several times, and I was wondering if I could just, for the public's benefit, just get a response on that.
Ooh, Lee, I got everybody lit up now.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the question,
Chris,
Councillor Lennox Zapp. Yes, the intent behind the bylaw for people to have bird feeders to feed, you know, your common blue jays and chickadees and things like that is still allowed. It's the magpies, the crows, birds that potentially cause a disturbance to the neighborhood that are not allowed.
Thank you.
Okay. I have Councillor Edwards, Councillor Miller, and then I'll go to Councillor
Just
Biden.
to put my,
Oh, yes, for the prior. Okay, once we get there, sorry. Okay, Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mayor Dion. Also, I had a resident ask me about buildings that are attracting pigeons as well. Mostly they're boarded up, and so is there something in your bylaw that when a resident calls in for bylaw to come and have a look, will that be addressed in this?
Good question.
Thank you, Mayor.
Go ahead,
Thank you.
Director.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Miller, for the question. Not addressing our responsible pet ownership bylaw. However, if there are instances where vacant buildings, boarded buildings are becoming covered with, bird feces and things like that, we can certainly enforce that through our property amenities bylaw. That would be the quickest way to address that. So yes, we do have those mechanisms in place.
Okay. Councillor Biden?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question too about purple martins. That is a huge problem in my ward where people have them, and it's I know other areas there's like 1 or 2 birdhouses, but there's one particular that is causing a lot of problems in the neighborhood. So is that included in this bylaw?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Grodnick. The bylaw speaks to wild birds, and that does leave some discretion to our bylaw officers to enforce that. It becomes, the discretion lies in what a nuisance is. So there is some clarification in the bylaw, for example, that animals have to, if you have an animal, it has to be within your own property. It can't, defecate on neighboring properties, things like that. So if that is an issue, then yes, that can be addressed through this bylaw amendment.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. And just a comment too about cats. I have residents that are upset with cats wandering, and this addresses that as well. And one in particular, what some residents are upset about is in spring when robins make nests and then you have little babies and then the cats come and knock them down and kill them. That's what they're upset about. And so if this addresses cats roaming, and so that's a good thing, and that'll address the concerns of the residents that brought forward that to me. So thank you, and I think it's a good bylaw. Thank you for preparing it.
Councillor Cody?
Yeah, I think if I read it correctly, you cannot feed deer in the city. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Cody, for the question. Deer, you said? Yes, yes. No, you can't feed wild animals. That would include deer. Yeah.
And that's also covered provincially. Because we don't need to attract them. Okay, I'll prompt the question. Question is now open. And it carried. Thank you. Oh,
Mayor, we have bylaw number 19 of 2022 to amend the responsible pet ownership bylaw to more clearly regulate wild and domestic birds, such as pigeons. This bylaw is for 3 readings today.
you're both on. Go ahead.
I move that bylaw number 19 of 2022 be introduced and read a first time.
Seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you. I'll prompt the question. Question's now open. And carried. Councilor Zierakowski.
I move that bylaw number 19 of 2022 be read a second time.
Thank you. Seconder?
Seconded, your worship.
Thank you. Prompt the question. Is this your second reading? Okay. Question's now open. Question's now open. Okay, carried. Who did I knock off? Cody. Sorry there, bud. Councilor Zierakowski.
And I now move that leave be granted to read bylaw number 19 of 2022 a third time tonight.
Thank you. Seconder.
I'll second that, Mayor Dion.
Thank you. I need everyone to vote on the leave. I'll prompt Councilor Cody here. Hang on. Okay, the question is now open. Is it flashing? Oh, it went that time. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Hey, it's in the city clerk coming. So it feared it for itself. Councilor Zierakowski.
Your worship, I move that bylaw number 19 of 2022 be read a third time and passed tonight. That bylaw number 19 of 2022 be adopted, sealed, and signed by the mayor and city clerk.
You seconder?
Seconded, your worship.
Thank you. I'll prompt the question.
Could I have a word?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to thank administration for their work on this. These are the kind of differences that are important to our neighbors in our neighborhoods. These are the issues that affect day-to-day living for our residents. And us being attentive to them and making this change, and I thank my colleagues in the room, administration, for their work on this. These are the differences, common sense policy and bylaws that our residents appreciate.
Perfect.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
support.
No problem. Good points. Questions now open? You're gonna wear it out. Okay, it carried. Thank you, Councilor Cody. Okay. 11.10, Downtown Improvement Reserve Policy, Security Cameras. Councilor Edwards?
Oh, no.
Okay, just checking. I go by the queue. Counselor Kilmer.
Thank you. I move that the Prince Albert Downtown Business Improvement District be authorized to utilize $1,983.57 from the Downtown Business Improvement Reserve in order to purchase and install security cameras.
Seconder.
Oh, sorry.
I'll second that, your worship.
Thank you. Discussion? Counselor Zepp, you're up.
Question for administration. I don't know if the question might be for the city clerk or not, but my understanding is that as the PA Downtown bid, is a part of our city corporation in a way, that we may be talking to the downtown bid about applying our city policies about the usage of the film, how this film can be used to be the same as how the city is able to use our surveillance, and I'm just wondering if that is in the works.
City clerk.
Yes, I've had a conversation with the downtown bid, as well as one of our privacy personnel, and we do have a meeting scheduled to have a presentation to talk about privacy collection, disclosure and retention. Okay?
Seems to make sense as we are a corporation. Thank you.
Okay, now I have a question and I don't know if anyone can answer it because it is come from the downtown bid. But $1,983.57, that didn't do my house. So I don't know what kind of system they're getting for $1,900 because it did use the word plural cameras. You know, does anyone have shopping channel?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, for the question. Unfortunately, I don't have details on the type of camera, the quality of camera. I believe they applied for 2. That is what they're going to be mounting, but
Okay.
other than that, I just based the report on the information that was presented to me.
Thank you. Counselor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. I just want to applaud the downtown bid for looking after the residents. They want people to feel safe downtown, and really the initiatives they brought in, adding security, looking at the cameras, I really just have to applaud what they're doing down there. Thank you very much.
Yes, I echo that. Okay, I'll prompt the question. The question is now open. You sound like a woodpecker, and I think that's covered under a responsible pet owner. Oh, you made it work there. Thank you. Carried. Okay. We'll have it checked out when we're done. We only have 2 more items and then councillor comments. 11.11, bylaw 21 of 2000, rezoning 250 28th Street. Oh, that's why it's got a star on it. I thought it because it was important. Okay, Councillor Zepp.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. QP 882, letter of understanding, City Hall restructure. Councillor Kilmer.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the letter of understanding number 2022-06 between the city and the Canadian Union of Public Employees, local number 882, be approved and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the letter of understanding on behalf of the city.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Miller.
Thanks, Mayor Dion. I will second.
Thank you. I see no one in the queue. It's now open. 7. Who am I missing? Don't matter, I'm closing it and it carried, and we'll apologize. Oh.
Oh, Counselor Miller.
You didn't. 2 demerits.
Just 2?
Yeah, it's generous today. If the principal was here, you'd be in more trouble. I'm just a colleague. Okay, does someone want to yell at Tara? Unfinished business, we have none. Okay, number 13, Mayor and Councilors Forum. Councilor Miller.
Yes, Mayor Dion. So there's a golf tournament being held at the municipal golf course, our city, beautiful city golf course.
Beautiful.
The second annual River Valley Resilient Retreat Golf Scramble will take place on Saturday, September 10th. If anybody's interested in going, that would be great. That's all for me. Thanks.
Commercial, okay. Councilor Kilmer.
I just want to say thank you so much to the people who organized the event here on our city, on our foyer, or in the Memorial Square, sorry, to celebrate Ukrainian Independence Day.
Yes.
Councillor Ogrodnik and his counterparts did an excellent job of teaching us a lot about what the Ukraine brings and the people that we've been fortunate enough to choose our city as a place to grow their families. So thank you very much to Councillor Ogrodnik for taking the time and the other people who did help you with that event. It was fantastic.
Councillor Bodnik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a few. I just will pick up on that. I want to thank Taras Kachikowski, who helped organize, Katie Skomorowski, well-known musician in Prince Albert, who helped organize music. We had a lady, Anya Wozniak, I think, or Wozniak or something. Her name is, she's from Ukraine. She's only been here a couple of months. She's a singer, and she performed and in the Ukrainian language and did an amazing job. And then Kathleen Clark on the bandura, which is a traditional Ukrainian instrument, explained the history and the significance of that particular instrument. She performed as well. And then we had Barvinok dancers, a couple of them performed. And I did not know that the moves that they did in dancing was actually military moves that were practiced from the time, 1,000 years before Moscow was even thought of. In Kyiv, Ukrainians had to defend their land constantly. And that's what they did, is they practiced through these moves, and that now has become a traditional dance of Ukrainians. I also want to thank Lucy Wells from the Veselka Ukrainian Heritage Club, who organized, in conjunction with the Polka Fest, bread in the clay ovens. And very popular, sold out within minutes, and $600, $700 was collected, and that's going for humanitarian aid to Ukraine. I want to thank the Prince Albert Soccer Association too, who has waived all fees for all the children from Ukraine to play soccer, and that is quite generous of them to do that and to help these children adjust to Canadian life and life in Prince Albert. And knowing that these children are here with their mums, their aunts, their grandmas, and unfortunately their fathers and some of their older brothers and grandfathers, etc., are still in Ukraine fighting. Last but not least, I want to thank the Community Services Department for the upkeep of the Rotary Trail. What a fantastic trail. I can finally climb Berezowski Hill. Beginning of summer, I could go 10 feet and just about died. and now I could climb it. And I did. That's why. So I'd encourage you, older people that die when you bike, get an electric bike, and man, you just put it in level 3, and it's just pedaling, and you go right up the hill, and you're not winded. So, but the rotary trail is in fantastic shape, and a lot of people are using it, and it's one of the great treasures of our city, and encourage people to get out before it snows here and use that rotary trail. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Councillor Lennox up.
Thank you. I also wanted to thank Councillor Ogrodnik and his counterparts on the great organization of Ukrainian Day of Independence. It was a very special day for me because I was able to bring a very special family member to the event, a very young family member, and I'm still hearing in my house about Ukrainian Day of Independence and what we saw there. Yeah, and I think there's going to be some options. So thank you. It was really, as Councillor Kilmer said, it was a beautiful event. And something special to me was hearing from newcomers from Ukraine who have left tragedy and strife and are here in our beautiful city. And it was a big deal to me. So thank you. I wanted to mention that there is some. This is just being advertised publicly, and I thought I'd advise that across Saskatchewan there are vigils being planned to be held for the victims of the recent tragic events, and I did see advertised to the public that there will be, there's a Saskatoon vigil, a Regina vigil, and the Prince Albert vigil is planned for September 7th, 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. in front of City Hall in Memorial Square. Yes,
Yeah.
and I'll be there, and I'm sure members of the public who want to be able to have that time will be there as well. I'll be there in my capacities as deputy mayor, as the mayor has asked me to, and I'm happy, I'm honored to be able to do that. And then for any members of the public who really enjoy when beaver tails come to the city of Prince Albert, which are the spud nut shaped donut, they're coming to Kinsman Park tonight. You can get there tonight until this evening and also throughout this week. Thank you.
Oh, good. Okay. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to talk a little bit quickly about the Crime Focus Group and a letter that went public today. We're all aware in the room of the letter that was constructed, but it did go public, and I'm just going to read it quickly for those who are watching and then provide some clarifications on some of the points. So this letter is being forwarded. This letter went out approximately 3 weeks to the Premier to have a look at. This letter is being forwarded to request your assistance and support in proactively addressing crime in Prince Albert. Prince Albert is a provincial hub and gateway city that services northern Saskatchewan. Drug dealers and gangs are fueling addictions in the city, and this results in violence and property crime. Crime is on the rise. Our Prince Albert Police Service are responding to an increasing number of calls each year and often forced to be reactive rather than proactive. Our city is gaining a reputation for gangs, violence, drugs, and homelessness. Many organizations and businesses endorse this letter, and during discussions it is evident that there needs to be action taken against all who are committing crimes against both residents and visitors. In order to obtain our objective of crime reduction, we are requesting 10 extra police officers be assigned to Prince Albert for a period of 2 to 3 years as a pilot project for the province. The data that would be collected during the project would be instrumental in assisting other areas in Saskatchewan who are experiencing similar problems. A 2 to 3 year timeframe is suggested, as this proactive approach will require time to demonstrate effectiveness and facilitate sufficient data gathering. Drugs and gangs negatively impact all residents in the city and surrounding communities, and as such, the Prince Albert Crime Focus Group is requesting your help. Many of our seniors and elders are scared to leave their homes and go for a walk in fear of becoming victims of crime. And this is very unfortunate, and it needs to stop. You will find attached a list of organizations and businesses signing their endorsement of this request, and will continue to be updated as the Prince Albert Crime Focus Group continues to work towards Prince Albert that is safe for residents and visitors. I invite you to meet with me in Prince Albert to discuss this issue further and look forward to hearing from you. And that was to Honorable Christine Tell, Minister of Corrections, Policing and Public Safety, Honorable Scott Moe, Premier of Saskatchewan, Honorable Joe Hargraves, MLA Prince Albert Carleton, Honorable Alana Ross, MLA Prince Albert Northcote. So I just want to clarify a little bit about this letter. It's not requesting 10 new officers to be funded by residents and businesses in the city. That would add to the cost of our police service that is already quite high. This request is to bring in 10 officers to focus specifically on drugs and gangs who are fueling addictions and violence in the city. During some of the discussions that we were able to have, it was evident that we need some help. All people that we spoke to said, we need some assistance. We need our Prince Albert, safe Prince Albert back, our beautiful city, before it goes too far. All people, this is impacting all people. And so that is one big thing I need to stress. I really want to thank all of the people that we were able to reach out to. Councillor Head helped chair the committee. I really want to thank all the groups, the individuals, the organizations that we spoke to and offered advice, comments, and guidance into what we're requesting. I really do appreciate that. We really appreciate that. Tomorrow, Councillor Head and I will meet with MLA Hargraves to further this discussion. He has requested that meeting. That's a positive step in the right direction. Thank you.
And just so you know, Premier Moe acknowledged to me today that they've received the letter and that we will be hearing back from them. So that was a positive too when you're at another event and the Premier mentions that. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. I also like to thank Dawn Robbins from the West Platte Bernice Saï Center for putting on her annual party in the park for the kids at the Lions Park. And I'd like to thank the police and fire departments for coming in participating with that. The kids had lots of fun with the spray park and with the fire truck sprays, their own spray park, they're bringing it with them. And Councillor Kilmer actually came and helped me cut up watermelon this year because Councillor Zepp wasn't available. And she did a very good job. Now she's a professional cutting watermelon, and she did a very good job. Thank you very much.
Well, the thickness is the key if you don't want to get it all over you. Okay, anyone else before I close? Okay, this morning I was invited and I represented the city at the Whitefish Indian Reserve in Big River. They opened today an unbelievable training facility, high school, and a new hockey rink. And the new hockey rink sits 800. And one of the participants in the opening ceremonies today, of course, was Jim Nelson's family. It's named after him. And I want to thank the New York Rangers for attending and being part of the ceremony and also helping build the facility. It was a great event, and that's where I seen the Premier. And but I'd like to also give kudos out to the Raiders. Lots of times we do unique things in our community and people don't know it. The Raiders actually stayed in Big River. And Big River put on cultural days for them. So in talking to the players today, they were amazed to see the other side. You know, you see First Nations in the city, but First Nations on reserve is totally a different life. And they spend time there, which is really good for cultural training. So I applaud the organization of the Raiders for doing that because it really did make an impression on Big River. I was shocked how the place was packed. And of course, who else was there? Of course, the Country Co-op. was there handing out the hamburgers, you know? And I harassed them a little because they only have one gas station in Big River, and I thought they'd have two or three like everywhere else. But it was quite a good chuckle. And the Premier was there, and other representatives, Gord Wyatt was there, one of the cabinet ministers, and a few of the chiefs. And it was kept somber, strictly because of what we went through this weekend. But the opening happened, and it's going to be a great training facility. And I just hope they're the best, and thank you for inviting us, because you are our neighbors and our partners, so I was very pleased to participate in that. And with that, I'll move on to number 14 now, inquiries. Oh, we don't have any. Okay, I love it. Oh, here we go now. Councilor Zierakowski.
Worship, I wonder if we can have some communication between the ward councillors and the management, the traffic manager, or somebody in Public Works regarding the speed cameras that we installed, not the cameras, don't want to say cameras, speed indicators that were placed throughout our wards a couple of years ago. Just to make sure that we're on the same page moving forward. Their original use, I think, worked out pretty good. But some time has passed. Maybe there's time to refresh a conversation so they don't go missing or stray too far from the original intent. Thank you.
Perfect, and I like that. It'd be interesting to get a report from all 8 of them to see what the speeds are and where they are and stuff like that. Go ahead. Oh,
And so my B part of this is I'm hopeful somebody can let the public know, let me know where exactly on the website that data is available, that was created. Folks are asking, so I think it's important to show them the actual speed. Sometimes it's higher than they thought. Quite often, I'm surprised, it's lower than we first thought. So I think it's important we point them to the data, because certainly administration and we too at times make decisions based on that information. So I think it's important that the public sees that. It's in their neighborhoods.
thank you. Okay, no one else? I'll move on then. Thank you for that. Notice of motions. Oh, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Number 15, inquiry responses, August 8th. Councilor Bodnick.
I'll move that inquiry response 22-8 be received as information and filed.
Thank you. Seconder? Councilor Edwards?
I'll second that, Mayor Dion. Thank
Thank
you.
you. I'll prompt the question. I'm laughing because there's a few that don't have check marks on them. Yeah. Okay, it's now open. And it carried. Thank you, and everyone registered. So thank you. Now I'll move on to number 16, notice of motions. Councilor Zepp?
That city administration review the parks naming policy and the street naming policy and bring forward language that enables diversity and gender equity to be a part of the naming selection process.
Thank you. Councilor Miller?
Thank you. That administration bring forward a policy regarding having city staff bring shopping carts to the old city yards to enable businesses to pick them up at the city yards.
Okay. Maybe if I could just extend that a report, because we do collect them now, and we do phone them to come pick it up. But you want them to be moved to the city yards? Oh, sorry. Turn her on.
So from what I understand in the conversation I had today, they go into the landfill, into a recycling pile that goes to McDonald's Metals at $300 a cart. So I had a few companies call me on the weekend, and I told them that I would bring it up and try to resolve a problem, and so this is how I'm gonna resolve it. So at $300 a cart, there's some very upset grocery store people that their carts are being just, they're not broken, like most of them are not broken, but they're just being thrown away.
Okay, good, because when I phoned them asking to pick up the carts, they didn't, so I ended up picking them up. So, as long as they come back with a policy that will hold them for so long at the city yards, and after a certain period of time, then they'll go.
Right.
I like the idea. Okay, anyone else? Okay, moving on to motions. 17.1, motion from Chairline accept swimming lessons. I don't- Oh, I was reading.
I move that city administration provide a report regarding the feasibility of the city offering more swimming lesson spaces in categories of lessons where families experience a lack of spaces. I'm going to just add a line at the end there, and I'd like to hear what council says about it, but to be heard at Budget Committee.
Okay. Okay. Did I get you to? Sorry, and I'll come back to you. No. Oh, seconder. Oh, sorry. Seconder? Councilor Miller,
I'll second.
discussion? Do you want to go first, or?
I can wait.
Okay. Councilor Kill, no. Councilor Zepp?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear other thoughts on this topic. I think we should learn more. I think it would be good to learn from administration what the issues are and what's happening right now. If you take a look at our city website right now under the Frank Dunn Pool website, it's open to the public. You can take a look right now, and we have phenomenal length of waiting lists, and it's right there. You can see it. I looked at it today. And so what we have right now is when we open for example, the fall bank of swimming lessons at Frank Dunn Pool, which happened recently in August, there's a certain day that you can go online and try to book your child in. What I hear after that day, that 7 a.m., you got to be on the button, clicking, trying to get your child in, and I hear from parents contacting me, telling me, I was on at 7 a.m., Tara, and I didn't get my kid in a space. Or I didn't get my kid in a space that they can go to. It's the time I have to work. I can't get into that one, so I'm on a wait list. And so that's what's driving this suggestion. I'm sure that the director knows far better than I about those problems. I bet he hears more phone calls than I do on that. But I think it would be good for us to learn more about this, to find out what we can do, and perhaps the new aquatic center, maybe that, we have heard that may assist in the future, but it would be good to hear about what the barriers are, what we can do now, what's the long-term plan. If you take a look at the website right now, for the fall session, we're offering, there are 50 sets of swimming lessons, right? And each lesson has, I think, for the younger kids, it's about 6 children in a lesson, right? So each lesson has about 6 children. 50 of them are full. They're marked full, right on the website, full. There are 5 lessons, mostly the older lifeguarding and bronze, that are only 5 that are not marked full. And when I looked today, I tried to write down how many are sitting on a waiting list. I marked down, the first one I clicked on, 20 people on the waiting list, 12, 18, I won't read all of them, but that's a lot of children on different waiting lists for different days of the week. The biggest one was for swimming level 1, 40. You have 40 children on that waiting list for one, and we offer several swimming level 1, but for one of our sessions, 40 are sitting on that waiting list hoping to get in. So I think that, that this is, can be collaborative. There's no critique. I'm not critiquing or it's not negative. This is positive, that What's the feasibility? What is it that we would need as a city to offer more spaces? Because I don't know, but I bet that the director has good answers as to what we do need. It'd be great to have that. I'd love to have that in writing so that when people ask me, I can give them a responsible answer. And the reason I added the ending there to be heard at Budget Committee, and I can remove that if that's not desired, but it might be smart to have this. November 16th, I see, is we have marked as Budget Committee beginning. And it might be smart for us to know. We should know the balance of what the cost might be. I guess I should ask administration, maybe I will at the end of my comments, I'll ask, if November 16th is feasible to have such a report, but I'm guessing administration might have quite a bit of that in their own head as to what would go in this report already. I don't want this report to take a lot of administration time, or I think that it's maybe an education process for us. And then we can make those responsible decisions at budget time. Are there things we can do? Do we wait for long-term? I could talk on and on, but I won't. But I will just end by asking administration, would November 16th be reasonable to just have that in budget binders to be aware of, like a report, just a report for budget time? Would that be feasible? It is a motion, yes.
Yeah, she's got a motion up on the board. Okay. Go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. Just to clarify timeframe, so the budget, and maybe a question for the city clerk, that the timeframe for the budget package to go out is prior to November 16th. I just can't recall the day. So there would be a date there. I can't remember. Is it mid-October? Kind of generally. Yeah. So we'd have approximately about a month timeframe to put the package together.
Mm-hmm.
I think would be, yeah, that we certainly could meet that time frame if council wishes.
Yeah. Well, I think she answered 90% of the question. It's capacity. We had 300 spots available because we only have so much time. We only have so much time in the pool that's controlled by the public school board, and we only have so many instructors. So she sort of answered my question. I was going to ask the question, but she answered it. Our capacity was 300, and it's just like Raider tickets. If you want playoff tickets, you better get them early because we're going to be sold out.
The other consideration, if I could, Mayor Dion, is that it's striking the right balance with the other programs we also provide. So we certainly don't want the intent to, hopefully resolve maybe a waiting list issue, certainly that we recognize, with swimming lessons, but then potentially cause disruption of other programs. So we can consider all that in the report for Budget Committee.
Thank you. Okay.
And I guess I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Councilor Zierakowski.
Well, I'm really confused as to the purpose of the motion. I have to say I'm really aghast, almost really, not quite offended, but pretty close. We've heard these answers time and time and time and time again. And the answer is there's not enough capacity at our current facilities. That's why we moved to construct a new aquatic center. There's not enough space, there's not enough time. There's not enough family time. There's not enough time for swimming lessons. There's not enough time for public swimming, for family swim. The sharks want more time. The pikes have more time. So this isn't a surprise. And that's why over the last 10 years, 8 years, we've been moving towards a new facility for our families. That answer is evident. And now we're asking administration to create a report. For what purpose, I don't know. The mover and the seconder have consistently voted against the new aquatic facility. And so to come now and say, oh, look, we need more space. Yeah, we do. That's why it's important that we support that project. And some people have chosen not to. So I think it's really important that we not waste administration's time with an answer that is self-evident, that we know why. And the same with the motion coming up next. We've heard for years the answer why we don't have lifeguards is because they need to go back to school. We don't have staffing, and the maintenance needs to be done before winter. But you're asking the administration to stop the important work they're doing before winter comes to create a report. And I just don't agree with that wasting of resources.
Thank you. Councillor Boddick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Zurikowski on the fact that, I mean, we went from 2 privately owned, partnerships down to 1, you know, and this has caused some problem. And everything costs money. Anytime we add programs or add, in this case, more swimming lessons, this is going to cost the city money. And that's why, yeah, it should be in budget, and that's where we should be discussing these motions. And if we're in favor, then we should be voting in favor of the budget, so that we can offer these extra programs that we're asking for. And so I think, as Councillor Zurkowski said, the answer is already there. We're at capacity. And the director said, if we don't want to harm other programs. For example, public swimming. A family just to go and swim. We don't want to take away that time to offer more swimming lessons. We have to have a balance there. And unfortunately, the city doesn't own a swimming pool, and we will in 2 years, and it should resolve a lot of these problems. And we will be able to control it 24/7. We'll have access to it 24/7 to offer programs.
Absolutely. Especially during the day,
Yeah.
when the young kids can come, and those are the majority.
Families, toddlers and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. Seniors, your aqua size,
Yep.
you know, you could do.
In the
et cetera.
afternoons.
So that's what this is about. And so if we're going to ask for a report and we're going to ask for administration to do this work, we better be prepared to vote then in favor. If it comes to money, we better be voting in favor then of that budget that asks for more dollars. I agree. We need more. There's no doubt about it. I had a resident that called me as well, sent me an email. We need more. There's no doubt about it. But where does the money come from, number one, and where does the time come from, number two? So, thanks.
No problem. And if you don't mind, Councillor Lennox, I'll go to Councillor Kilmer first. But I'd also, just to bring it up, I looked at my book, and the deadline for budget reports is September 22nd. So it's 2 weeks, so it's quicker than we thought. Okay. Councillor Kilmer.
Thank you very much. I guess my question is for the director. Just as part of what you traditionally do in your department, would you yearly, you know, based on what Councillor Lennox Zepp was talking about, the waiting list, the number of, would you, members in your department be looking at alternatives already and have explored those areas and put into place all the different puzzle pieces to make it work as efficiently and effectively as possible?
Go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. To Councillor Kilmer's inquiry, so certainly there is a process when we're developing the fall programming into winter, and then likewise as we move out of the Frank Dunn Pool into the Kinsman Water Park season. Likewise, that work happens in the winter, so we're ready for the summer months. The ins and outs of how the programs fit, demand for those, et cetera, absolutely are part of that internal review that we complete. It's also part of the review that we complete when we prepare our budget as well. So I've heard the comments today, and certainly the capacity is an issue. We're certainly well aware of the next 2 years, the challenges that are presented to us with that capacity issue. Hearing also the September 22nd, that's a little sooner than I was anticipating. If council, if this motion is for a report, and council would like to see that, my suggestion would be that we bring it to an executive committee meeting instead in October, that's maybe closer to budget committee, just to give us a little bit more time to work through what would be required in the report. Because the next 2 weeks, we're certainly under the radar right now to get our budget finalized. So if council would like to see a report, my suggestion would be at an executive committee meeting closer to budget committee, and then perhaps we could have it referred if council wishes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. Without requiring a long report, Director, you analyze this every single year. can we add more spots to swimming lessons without sacrificing other organizations?
It would be a challenge. There would need to be sacrifice somewhere in terms of other programs. We would need to assess what that demand looks like. My concern is when I say balance is what I don't want to try to achieve or attempt to achieve is resolve one issue but cause another. The other option that is, and I don't even know if it is, and it would need to be considered before a report come forward, is the potential for Sask Rivers to provide some of their daytime access. That would come at a cost. I don't know though in their plans if that's even available, so just trying to think of the options on the spot. The challenge with that though is then staffing and making sure that we can resource it. So that's why I don't mind if council wants to see more information in writing, a report certainly is a good way for us to bring that forward. But those would be some of the things that we'd be looking at, and the concern is with the balance.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that that balance is looked at each and every year. And the difficulties, as we've already said, is we're down to one pool, and people need to be patient for 2 years till the new pool comes. And then there'll be multiple spots opening up. It's unfortunate that a private pool closed, but here we're at. We're here today because we have one pool. Now we're gonna have a beautiful new facility that with a large capacity to swim, beautiful pools in there, and people are gonna have to be patient. That's the unfortunate part.
And there's going to be two bodies of water in there for lessons. Double it, yeah. Okay, I'm going to close Councillor Zepp.
Thank you. Question for the director. When I started this journey of trying to learn more about this topic, when I, personally experienced it, but also had families coming to me about it, I sent in a report of concern asking about the topic. And the response I received, I have it in writing, is lifeguarding, that not having the number of staffing for lifeguarding. What's the director's opinion about, in the future, let's say 2 years go by and we have a new pool, I guess, is there an expectation that that portion will be solved and we will be able to bring down these wait lists? Or are we still, I guess I was expecting from this report maybe some things that we could do as a council, or at least consider to help out the department on the topic, and that might be one of them. For example, do we need to think of something to entice lifeguards to come to our city for, maybe summer sessions when they're out of school, et cetera? I don't know the answers, but I wondered, I guess that's my first question.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Mayor Dion, to Councillor Lennox Epps' inquiry. So certainly incentives is one of the things we're looking at as part of the new operating model for the new facility. So what you'll see when we present that new model in the new year is incentives, but also the programming that we're discussing today, the capacity that we think will be available by having that access 100% of the time versus just 62% of the time at the current pool. So
That's the answer.
until we have that information compiled, certainly would hesitate today to make any projections on the waiting lists. We appreciate there's demand, and as part of the new operating model, we're looking at all of those aspects.
And
Thank you.
if I can follow that up, I think I have a couple of questions on that. The lifeguarding, so is the expectation from the department that they believe that they will be able to have additional lifeguarding to what we have now?
Well, you just asked for a report. You're asking them now for details of the report. So if you get all the answers, you're just going to withdraw your motion? I'm kind of lost here. You asked for a report, you asked for this and that, and now you're going into the detail, asking the director.
I guess these are good faith questions. I guess it's the best I can say. Like I'm trying.
Point of order, I don't believe this is a motion, it sounds to me like an inquiry.
I made a notice of motion last meeting. It's for a
Okay,
report.
go ahead.
To get a report. So I guess a good faith question. I don't need to take a lot of time, but just, is there a thought that we will have more lifeguarding to do less, to put lessons on?
So how the lifeguarding works is by ratio of attendance. So we have lifeguards it all depends on what you have for capacity. The indoor center versus potentially what our capacity is at the water park could be two different amounts which require different resources. In our experience, the indoor opportunities have required less of a resource on deck just due to the nature of the size of the facility versus the outdoor capacity required at the Kinsman Water Park and the water slide complex that exists there. So those would be things that will show in the operating model, whether there'll be additional required, also how the two seasons overlap and what council would like to see in terms of the indoor offerings, and then what it makes sense for the Kinsman Water Park to be open and how those coincide. Also remembering that we're gonna need time for preventative maintenance. So there's times where we need to shut a particular facility down and complete maintenance. So we're looking at all those factors. And I think when the model is ready, we're gonna present it in a couple different phases. We're not just gonna bring it to you once for approval. We're gonna bring it to you at a stage where there's some input, where council could provide input, and we can gather some of those comments back from what you're hearing in the community, what we're hearing in the community, and then be able to bring some of those options in as we work through it to a final model.
That's wonderful to hear. Something I wanted to say, and I think it's important to say, is this report could be very good for city morale with these parents. So I hear a lot of bad morale that comes at me after about 8 a.m. on the day that parents are clicking the button trying to get their kid in and they didn't get in. And I see this report as something I can then provide and say, look, this is what the real answer is. And I don't have that yet. I don't have that yet. So that would be something that could be very beneficial to have. And I'm not sure why that's upsetting, but it's a positive to be able to provide education to people who are asking me questions so I can give the real answer. Councillor Kilmer asked a question. I needed to follow up on it. When we have wait lists, like seeing a big balloon in Swimmer 1, does the department currently, or maybe in the future, look at the numbers in the wait list and then change where the lessons, for the spring session?
Yes, well, I think she's getting the report now. I'm getting frustrated too because,
My point of order is, I don't believe this falls within the process, the set of rules we've all agreed to. This sounds like an interrogation to me or cross an examination, not a motion being presented to members of council.
thank you.
I'd like a ruling on that, please.
Well, I agree. You asked for a report. I think you you're not going to get the vote. So now you're asking the director 5 or 6 questions that I want to see in the report.
Sure, if they
So-
can come in the report, that's fine too.
Okay, so you want the report, or do you want to continue drilling
I'll
that
leave it to the
direction?
chair. I will say, I thought Councillor Kilmer asked a really good question, and the point of asking this question was to follow up on that, nothing more. But I'll leave it to the chair.
Thank you. I'd like to call the vote.
I would ask if I could close at this time. I've been asking questions.
Well, I know that's been the issue. Okay, go ahead with your close.
Thank you. Let's learn more so that we can provide positive information to the public. I believe the director in what he has said. I think everyone believes the director in what he said, that there are options that he could provide us. I'm going to follow the director's advice and remove the words budget committee to be heard at an upcoming executive committee. And then we can hear that through the director at that time. And there is nothing negative here. This is a good thing for us to learn about. I'm going to close by stating, as I have before, that if the issue that folks are having is how people vote on an upcoming aquatic center, you can look back at my record of voting to see that I have voted in favor of the aquatic center, but not in favor of location and not in favor of.
Yeah, I'm not going to allow you to draw straws. It's going, you either support it or you don't. You can't say, well, I don't like it because of the location. Council voted, we all agreed that if we vote 7-2, we'd all be on board. You know, that was the decision. But
Then why are we
that
hearing
isn't
it
the
tonight?
decision.
Then tell me, why is the mover and seconder of this motion hearing it tonight? It's important and it is factual. Thank
Okay,
you.
I'm going to call the question. Okay, the vote's now open. Carries 5-4. Okay. Yes. What do we do? Sorry.
He can reconsider it because he voted in favor.
Yeah, I'd like to reconsider the previous motion.
Okay,
I want a motion to reconsider. Pardon? You want a motion to reconsider?
Motion to reconsider the previous motion.
all right,
As a supporter of it, I can do that.
yes? Because you hit the wrong button. Okay. Seconder? He's going to, he wants to reconsider so he can change his vote. Thank you.
Once I have my light on, I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay, everyone understands what we're voting on? Yes, because he hit the wrong button. Okay, do you want to prompt the question? To reconsider, then I will bring the motion back up. Just give me a minute, the clerk's making the, well, it's important that, yeah, I won't say anything. And it's right at the bottom? Is that where I'll find it? Ready to go? Okay, the reconsider motion is open. Carries 8-1. Okay. All is exempt. So now we're going to bring the motion back up.
It'll be the same movers and seconders.
You need the same motion?
Yep.
Yeah.
You need to create another.
Nope.
Yeah.
You need to create another.
And it's the same seconders and the mover?
Same mover and same seconder.
Okay, so we're just going to revote. Okay. Is it ready? Okay, so we're revoting on the original motion for the report. Okay, the motion is now open. I'm missing a vote. 5-4 defeated. Okay, we'll move on to the next motion, 17.2. Motion, Councillor Lennox, that keeping Kinsman Water Park open to the end of August.
For the year 2023. I
Couns-
move that city administration provide a report on the feasibility of keeping the Kinsman Water Park open to the public to the end of August for the 2023 season, and the feasibility of offering night swimming.
Next year. 23. Okay, seconder?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Discussion? Go ahead.
I did put in an inquiry, and I'm sure we all saw the answer, that there are maintenance needs. Why is it that for this season we ended August 21st? There are maintenance needs, absolutely, and lifeguards do go back to school. I'm wondering from the director, is it totally hopeless? Would this report be hopeless? Are there any things that council could consider to assist to make any of this work?
All right.
Thank you, Mayor
Go
Dion,
ahead.
to Councillor Lennox Epps' inquiry. I wouldn't say it's hopeless. Certainly, the department, whenever options are debated, we're willing to look into them. So I certainly wouldn't say it's hopeless. The concern I would have is we don't want to risk a later start to the Frank Dunn pool operation. So as long as that isn't sacrificed by staying open longer, that's something we'd have to investigate as part of this feasibility review. The other aspect that plays quite a bit, like certainly late August this year, quite warm, temperatures were favorable. Some years, as we know, it doesn't go that way, so the demand isn't as much for the outdoor opportunity. So there would need to be in the feasibility review some flexibility with a plan moving forward, should there be one. We would probably build that type of option into such a review, because if the weather isn't cooperating, there's no reason for us to stay open at the water park for no reason. And we can shift our responsibilities over as we do. The other aspect, of course, and you noted from the inquiry response, is the maintenance requirements. So making sure we do everything that is required in time at the Kinsman Water Park there, and then also have, in conjunction with the Sask River School Division, the Frank Dunn pool ready. So we would consider all those factors in such a feasibility review.
Okay, and just wondering, am I remembering right that there have been years where we have stayed, the Kinsman Water Park has stayed open? I think we started a season later due to an issue and then ended the season later. Am I remembering that correctly or no?
There was a year when we constructed the main pool, the new pool in
Right.
2017. Being an exceptional year with such a major project, we lost quite a bit of the year, as you noted, or the season, as you noted. That was a bit of a one-off, I would call it, in that case. But again, like I mentioned, we're willing to look at all the options and see what the feasibility looks like in such a report, with the goal of not sacrificing our operation one way or another.
Thank you.
So another question, George, to staff. So when we close our pool, the Frank Dunn pool is open.
So the opening, we just opened at Frank Dunn pool here just after Labor Day weekend. With the third, so the way the current schedule currently works, third Sunday is our last day at the water park. That then gives us the rest of that week, and we usually
To
need
shift over.
a little bit of the next week to complete that maintenance required at the water park, and then we shift everything just before the Labor Day weekend to open this week.
Thank you. Councillor Brodnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question too of the director about staying open later then. Obviously, that's a huge financial cost. What would it cost? Like, what does it cost currently to have the Kinsman Water Park opened in its current hours of operation?
Very good question.
Approximately. I can't remember, like I could look it up in the budget binder, but do you know offhand approximately?
Total subsidy. We're gonna actually, well, we're gonna see it. It's off the top of my,
Yeah.
we just completed the rates and fees report. We're bringing it to
Yeah.
Community Services
Tomorrow.
Advisory,
Yeah.
the executive on Monday. You'll see the proposed cost recovery and the revenue and expenses that we have targeted for 2023. I would hesitate today to give you the number.
That's fair, thank you, and I should know that because I'll be at that meeting tomorrow, and I do remember looking at it, I just can't remember the cost. And how many weeks is Kinsman Water Park open approximately?
I forget the weeks, but it's approximately 80 days, give or take.
80 days,
Based
okay.
on the.
So if we added late night swimming, which would be great, but again, it's at a cost.
More
So everything is
subsidy.
a cost, and so we're adding more services, which means more money has to be spent to that, on that facility, which means the money has to either come from the people using it 100%, or we're gonna have to increase taxes to have people have the luxury of being able to swim at night. So again, it's a budget item, and where does the money come from? It'd be great to have a dome over it and be operating 24/7, 365 days a year, but at what cost? Do we have the money? We don't.
Okay, I'm going to prompt the question. Oh. Councillor Zierakowski.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, again, we've heard the challenges years and years
They're done.
and years. It's staffing and it's maintenance and it's closing one facility and opening up the other. Nothing's changed. In fact, the capacity issues, the pressures have gotten worse with the closing of the pool at Rivier. And Sask Rivers has staunchly said, no, no, no. This is our time, you're not getting in here. So whether at night, whether And right now, it's currently available this summer. In the evenings, it's available for bookings, or during the day. We just don't have enough capacity. We've heard these answers before. So we just need to be honest with our residents when they call and ask us, why does it take so long to book? Why can't we get in there? Tell them, be honest with them, and then support the new aquatic facility. There's not enough capacity. We need more for our families and more for our parents and more for our kids to get into that pool. And that's what the bridge we need to, that's how this story started 8 years ago.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm prompting the question. Everyone's voting, but I'm on the wrong page. Don't vote yet. Hang on. How do I get out of this one?
Abort.
Abort? Hey, abort. Okay, now I'm back. Open. Why won't it come up?
Right there.
Right there. Oh, there. Okay. Questions now open. One more vote. Defeated 6-5. 6-3, sorry. 6-5. Okay, on to 17.3. Motion, Councillor Head, improvements to the boat launch and parking. Councillor Head.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that the administration review options and costs to improve the boat launch area and parking along the river for consideration in 2023 budget. I also wanted to, I think I highlighted, I'll wait till I get a second.
Yeah, thank you. Oop, seconder. Councillor Zierakowski. Go ahead, Councillor Head.
Thanks again, Worship, Your Worship. You know, I've got a lot of comments about maybe some of the lack of addressing our boat launch and some of the parking issues that we're seeing over the summer here. And I know this is not a new issue, but I'd like to see something in the budget here to address that. And I know we have another option as well around 9th Avenue West that used to be a dock there, and maybe that's something we could also use for a boat launch or alternative, I guess. So I'd like to see something like that in the report, and I think it's been a long time coming. Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree, because we want to utilize our river. You know, I remember just 2 weeks ago, stopping the car, getting out, sitting on the riverbank and watching 4 young people on ski-doos just playing, and it was peaceful to watch. It was just a calm, beautiful night. The sun was setting. And that's what, you know, I go to Saskatoon and I want to tell them to get off the river because they're always on there. And I think it's one of the jewels that we should start adding and working on. So I certainly support that. Councillor Zierakowski.
Thank you, and I'll support this motion. Thank you for Councillor Head for bringing this forward. And when we started this conversation a few months ago, I think there was a bit of a sideways conversation about restricting access at the parking lot at the boat launch. And I think that's not the direction the mover wants to go in. It's about facilitating access to the river so we can have families accessing the river in a safe manner. So I'm looking forward to some big picture solutions, maybe some smaller picture solutions in the meantime, but thank you for the mover for bringing this forward.
Thank you. I see nobody else in the queue, so I'll prompt the question.
Councillor Miller.
Well, is my system not working? Okay, let me go back. Councillor Miller.
Thanks, Mayor Dion. I'd also like to hear from the chief of police and fire, their access and their availability to that waterway as well, because it's important that they get access as well for emergency services.
Yeah, and that'll be part of the plan because that's why we don't allow anyone in there today. So he'll certainly be consulted. Okay. Motion is now open. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Oh, we have no one registered public forum. Counselor Kilmer,
I move to adjourn.
seconder. Thank you. I'll prompt the question. Yeah, I know it'll go right to the end. Questions now open. And we're closed. Thank you. Good meeting. Everyone be safe out there.